I did not expect the Olympics opening ceremonies to have so many fashion moments. This year's ceremony in Paris set the bar extremely high, from team uniforms to elaborate spectacles to celebrities in attendance, so let's get into it. I'm gonna start with team uniforms. I only chose 5 that really spoke to me. Well, one spoke to me because it was bad. One of my favorites was definitely Team Haïti. The looks were designed by Haitian-Italian designer Stella Jean, incorporating art by Haitian artist Philippe Dodard. When so many countries chose basic blazers or tracksuits, it was really refreshing to see outfits that were thoughtfully designed and blended traditional attire. Apparently the men's jackets were inspired by Guayabera shirts with beautiful modern avant-garde motifs. There is a lot more I could say about these uniforms, but I have linked an article in the description if you'd like to learn more. And of course there was Team Mongolia, which kind of broke the internet in the weeks leading up to the games with their stunning, traditionally minded attire designed by Michelle and Emma Zonka. Apparently each look took 20 hours to make, which is unsurprising given the beautiful embroidery. Now, unfortunately, I don't think these looks hit quite as hard in the opening ceremonies as they did in the viral photo shoots. I think the rain is largely to blame for that. A lot of people were wearing ponchos, which obviously distracts from the beauty of the look. It's also just harder to get that fit to be completely impeccable when you're dressing so many people, and of course, it's hard to get good photos when it's raining and everybody's on a boat. That said, Team Mongolia truly did raise the bar for Olympic uniforms, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more fashion moments from opening ceremony looks in the future. Team Palestine had quite varied looks. Many of them had what I assume is traditional Palestinian embroidery, which I thought was extremely lovely, including on this dress worn by swimmer Valerie Tarazi. Boxer Wassim Aboussal is wearing a shirt embroidered with what appear to be warplanes dropping ammunition on children, so that is sobering to say the least. Team New Zealand! I really appreciate how the flag bearers wore these beautiful feather cloaks made by Maori weavers, and they have really interesting stories behind them. One of the cloaks, called Te Mahutonga, was apparently created for the Athens Olympics in 2004. So apparently it gets used for every Olympics, and then it gets returned to master weaver Ranui Ngarimu, who tidies it up, replaces some of the feathers, etc., so that it can be used again. And now, because each country is allowed 2 flag bearers, Ranui Ngarimu and her team designed and made a second cloak called Te Honoki Matariki to be worn by the second flag bearer. It was hand woven using tens of thousands of feathers, which apparently came from zoos around the world, and it apparently took 16 months to make. I thought the rest of Team New Zealand's outfit was kind of banal, but I thought these cloaks are really spectacular and I didn't see too many people talking about them, so I wanted to highlight them. I've linked a video in the description about the making of the second cloak. Please go watch it. And then there was Team France. I think this was a fashion fail. Not only is it not particularly interesting to look at, but it's made by a big brand, and while I'm sure the craftsmanship is impeccable, it is Berluti after all, it's just not really saying anything. Like, all of the previous uniforms I've talked about had stories and traditions literally woven and stitched into the garments, but what story is this telling? Absolutely nothing. Considering that France is the host country and, like, realistically the fashion capital of the world, this feels like a giant missed opportunity. I hope they do better next time. I'm so sorry that I'm only talking about 5 uniforms, but I don't want this video to be 5 hours long, so we have to move on. Please let me know in the comments what country's uniform was your favorite. Okay, now let's talk about the actual ceremony part, which was totally bombastic and over the top and unhinged at times, but I loved it. There was a lot of self-deprecating humor, including with the giant pink rat, which I guess was making fun of Paris's rat problem, and the ménage à trois situation, the campy headless Marie Antoinette. More serious topics were also explored through the 12 artistic tableaux that were presented throughout, and there was plenty of fodder for fashion lovers, so let's dive in. Lady Gaga performed Mon truc en plume, which means my thing made of feathers. It's a song from the 60s that alludes to cabaret costumes, hence the feathers, and other topics as well, like love, sexuality, seducing rich men, etc. So it makes sense that Lady Gaga's look had a lot of feathers. She was apparently wearing Dior haute couture, which at the beginning of the performance consisted of this black feather jacket on top of a tailored bustier and a detachable skirt with a long train embroidered with pink sequins and feathers. The feather jacket came off fairly quickly and the skirt did soon after that, so for most of the performance she was wearing this bustier and hot pants. Which, like, I get it, it's performance wear, you can't be running around and dancing and getting on and off a piano bench with a skirt with a 10-foot long train. I don't actually know how long the skirt was. So I am still grateful that we did get a good fashion moment, at least at the beginning. She did also get this cream-colored feathery pom-pom attachment partway through, so that was fun. I'm not a huge fan of Dior haute couture most of the time these days. I find it's generally kind of boring, but I thought they did a good job with this one. It showcased the talent and skill of French feather workers, and as an aside, apparently the feathers were collected during the bird's molt, which would imply that they were not harmed. And it fit Lady Gaga pretty well and also fit the mood of the performance, so I have no complaints. The next fashion moment I want to talk about was the Synchronicité tableau, which was an homage to artists and tradespeople, and in particular those working to restore the Notre Dame Cathedral, which burned in April 2019. There were literally acrobats suspended from the scaffolding of the cathedral, which is still being repaired, as well as dancers on the ground and on a roof. Now, the fashion moment that I want to talk about here is apparently all of the costumes for this tableau were either thrifted and or upcycled. So I thought it was cool that they did that. Anyway, the next tableau, called Liberté, was completely cuckoo and over the top. That's where the headless Marie Antoinette came in. But the second part of the tableau was all about love and sensuality, including this infamous throuple situation. I have to assume that this is a play on the fact that ménage à trois is one of the only French expressions that most Anglophones know, in addition to things like voulez-vous coucher avec moi and words like bonjour, oui, croissant, and baguette. Anyway, the outfits were bold and vivacious, and they were designed by a young Paris-based designer named Charles de Villemorin. We love to see young designers succeeding in this tough industry. Next, we had the Égalité tableau, which had French singer Aya Nakamura performing alongside musicians from the French Republican Guard. And in particular, I thought that Aya Nakamura, who is apparently the most listened to Francophone artist, I'm not sure if that's just right now or of all time, did a fabulous job and looked great. She wore a gold feathered Dior haute couture dress. It certainly seems to reference their latest haute couture collection, in particular this gold feathered bodysuit, which I didn't think was that spectacular on the runway, to be honest. I mean, yes, of course, it's pretty, and I'm sure it took a long time to make and all that, but I was still kind of like, eh. However, in this context, as performance attire, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it also makes sense in the context of the Olympics, where gold is a very prominent color, and it ties in with the feathers we saw previously in the Lady Gaga performance, so I think it all works. Up next, singer Axel Saint-Cyril from Guadeloupe sang La Marseillaise, which is the French national anthem, atop the Grand Palais. If you haven't listened to her, I would suggest that you do. Her voice is one of the purest sounds you will ever hear. Now, in terms of what she's wearing, this is another Dior haute couture gown. Sadly, I haven't really seen any photos or videos that give a good 360 view of the dress, but it appears to have an exposed corset with visible boning and an asymmetrical white draped bodice that flows into a skirt with a bit of a looser drape, and there is a red panel to the skirt coming down at the side. So I think she looks totally fabulous. The dress fits her well. Her hair and makeup is sublime. However, I am going to be a bit nitpicky here. I do think we probably could have chosen a more interesting dress, and maybe a choice was made not to do so in order to not distract from her performance or the French flag or all that. But I do think we could have kicked it up a notch without it being distracting, and additionally, I'm not a huge fan of this drape here. It's just kind of hanging. And I guess my main question is, why is there so much Dior? I get that there were other designers and that there was thrifting and upcycling and all that, but these major musical performances seem to all be wearing Dior, and I would have liked to see some smaller independent brands for some of these looks. Okay, I just answered my own question about why there's so much Dior. It's because LVMH paid a bunch of money to sponsor the event. Okay, this next one is a doozy, the Festivité tableau. This part of the ceremony got a lot of notoriety online for its dragified depiction of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper painting. Just popping in to say that it was actually apparently based on an ancient Greek bacchanal and not on The Last Supper, which makes sense, you know, ancient Greece, Olympics. But the part of this tableau that I thought was really interesting for us fashion gals is that there was a runway show featuring avant-garde designs from small independent designers. It included Victor Roinsanto, who designed this new take on an Alsatian headpiece, Alphonse Maître-Pierre, who dressed iconic model Farida Khelfa, Kevin Germanier, who is known for his upcycling and beadwork. He dressed Italian fencer Beatrice Viograndis in one of his iconic creations, Gilles Asquin, who dressed trans model Rhea Martini in tens of thousands of crystals, and many, many more. Next up, we have another Dior moment with singer Juliette Armanet, who wore this light-up ensemble. It was a collaboration between Dior and artist Clara Daga. The singer wore this ensemble, which is allegedly made out of leather, as she sang John Lennon's Imagine, while floating down the Seine on some sort of raft, accompanied by pianist Sofiane Palmer, who was playing a burning piano. The lights embroidered into it apparently lit up rhythmically with the music. So I think it's a cool idea, but I feel like it didn't really hit the way it should have, because even with the lights, it was just kind of hard to see in the dark, so I think that idea could have been workshopped a little more. Alright, second last fashion moment I'm gonna talk about. I feel like we have to discuss these ghost figures. There was this armored ghost lady galloping down the Seine on a metal horse, and then after that, another one riding a real horse, bringing the flag to the flagpole to be hung up. These were apparently designed by super cool independent French designer Jean Friot and were apparently inspired by Joan of Arc. The designer says that the armor is made out of metallized leather, which was sourced in Italy, and that underneath is a bodysuit that was printed to look like armor, which I think is really ingenious. And then there was this masked ghost / torchbearer, which appeared in various moments throughout the ceremony. This mysterious character is wearing a bonnet of some sort, as well as a jacket and waistcoat that certainly seem reminiscent of late 1700s or early 1800s fashion to me, although I'm no expert. This would suggest that maybe this was a French revolutionary figure. Some people say that this character might have been inspired by the Phantom of the Opera or a character from Assassin's Creed. I do like how this jacket was laced up at the back. I think that's a really nice detail and would probably allow for more movement, as this character was literally doing parkour all over the city. Last fashion moment I'm going to talk about is the incomparable Celine Dion. She made a triumphant return to the stage, or rather to the Eiffel Tower in this case, after a hiatus of several years of not performing due to illness. She wore this stunning Dior haute couture gown embroidered with thousands of silver beads and sequins. It included a bit of a beaded train at the back and some subtle beaded fringes hanging down from the arms. Now, you all know that sometimes I give Dior a hard time, but this is not one of those times. I thought they knocked it out of the park with this look. The fit is absolutely impeccable, it contours her waist so beautifully, and I think this line work in the bodice serves to really elegantly define her waist. There's no obvious seam in the middle, there's no belt, just beautiful construction used to contour the body. I think it's ingenious, I think it's stunning. I could not imagine a more perfect look for Celine as she unleashed her gorgeous voice on the masses for the first time in years. I'm sure there was not a dry eye in the province of Quebec, where she is from, during her performance. 10 out of 10, no notes. There was a gaggle of celebrities present at the opening ceremony, including Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, who I think look adorable. I am going to make a video about celebrity fashion at the games at some point, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.